Federalist 64, Part 3. I'm going to start with paragraph 9. But to this plan, as to most others that have ever appeared, objections are contrived and urged. He's talking about the anti-federalists that constantly are coming up with what they consider to be false, big mistakes, things that are going to just ruin the country. Some are displeased with it, not on account of any errors or defects in it, but because as the treaties when made are to have the force of laws, they should be made only by men invested with legislative authority. These gentlemen seem not to consider that the judgments of our courts and the commissions constitutionally given by our governor are as valid and as binding on all persons whom they concern as the laws passed by our legislature are. All constitutional acts of power, whether in the executive or in the judicial departments, have as much legal validity and obligation as if they proceeded from the legislature. And therefore, whatever name be given to the power of making treaties, or however obligatory they may be when made, certain it is that the people may with much propriety commit the power to a distinct body from the legislature, the executive, or the judicial. It surely does not follow that because they have given the power of making laws to the legislature, that therefore they should likewise give them power to do every other act of sovereignty by which the citizens are to be bound and affected. Others, though content that treaties should be made in the mode proposed, are averse to their being the supreme law of the land. Because in the Constitution it says treaties are to be looked at as the supreme law of the land. They insist and profess to believe that treaties, like acts of assembly, should be repealable at pleasure. This idea seems to be new and peculiar to this country, but new errors as well as new truths often appear. These gentlemen would do well to reflect that a treaty is only another name for a bargain, and that it would be impossible to find a nation who would make any bargain with us which should be binding on them absolutely, but on us only so long as and so far as we may think proper to be bound by it. They who make laws may without doubt amend or repeal them, and it will not be disputed that they who make treaties may alter or cancel them. But still, let us not forget that treaties are made not by only one of the contracting parties, but by both, and consequently that as the consent of both was essential to their formation at first, so must it ever afterwards be to alter or cancel them. The proposed Constitution, therefore, has not in the least extended the obligation of treaties. They are just as binding and just as far beyond the lawful reach of legislative acts now as they will be at any future period or under any form of government. So in other words, he says, we're not making treaties like the regular laws that the legislature passes. Because these laws that the legislature passes, the next election you might have a new legislature and they might just change the law. See, that's acceptable. But you can't just make treaties and then 2 years later have some new members of the House or new members of the Senate and say, now, you don't like this. So he says, that's not going to work. Next paragraph. However useful jealousy may be in republics, yet when, like bile in the natural, it abounds too much in the body politic, the eye of both become very liable to be deceived by the delusive appearances which that malady casts on our surrounding objects. From this cause probably proceed the fears and apprehensions of some that the President and Senate may make treaties without an equal eye to the interest of all the states. Others suspect that 2/3 will oppress the remaining third and ask whether those gentlemen are made sufficiently responsible for their conduct, whether if they act corruptly they can be punished, and if they may take disadvantageous treaties, and if they make disadvantageous treaties, how are we to get rid of those treaties? This paragraph says a little bit of distrust is okay, but a lot of it, like when you have an ill feeling that you're going to get sick, he says, just like if you have too much of something that's good or bad for you in your body, it's going to make you sick and you can't think straight because you just got that sick feeling. He says the same thing. He says, we understand the anti-federalists to be a little distrustful, to have doubts, but when they have so much distrust, it seems like their reasoning goes out the door. One of the criticisms that they make of us is that why do you say that 2/3 of the Senate present concur? Why didn't you make the 100% of senators? He says this thing is not going to be possible. Plus, as in the next paragraphs, he's going to say, he says you got to have a little bit of trust in the people that you have elected to run the affairs of the state. Well, I better just finish the rest in the next video.